Picture awakening to the news that Ottoman forces have made landfall in Italy, a mere 7 days' journey from the Vatican. Their crimson flags are raised above the ramparts of Otranto, while panicked refugees crowd the paths leading to Rome. It is August 1480, and Europe is convinced the crescent moon will soon overshadow the dome of St. Peter's. Yet, the course of history hinges on a single, unexpected death. By the end of the 15th century, the Ottoman domain extended from the Danube River to the Euphrates, with its powerful fleet dominating the majority of commerce in the eastern Mediterranean. The states of Venice, Naples, and the papacy depended on fragile truces, trusting that the Turks would remain preoccupied with conflicts on other fronts. However, Sultan Mehmed II now desired a prize that would send tremors throughout Christendom, a foothold on Italian soil itself. Following his conquest of Constantinople on May 29, 1453, Mehmed declared himself the successor to the Roman Caesars. He was convinced that the new Ottoman capital was destined to rule both halves of the ancient empire. Rome, he contended, was the natural counterpart to Istanbul and the most direct path to universal dominion. Securing a harbor in southern Italy was the initial move toward that ambition. Mehmed's council chose the fortified port of Otranto, a possession of the Kingdom of Naples, because its harbor could accommodate their galleys and its castle overlooked the Strait of Otranto. From that position, their galleys could intercept Venetian and Spanish convoys, as ferries landed soldiers all across the region of Apulia. The city's fortifications were deteriorating, its defending force was small, and the nearest relief was days away. On July 28, 1480, Gedik Ahmed Pasha set sail from Ablona with approximately 90 galleys and transport ships, disembarking nearly 10,000 troops beneath the walls of Otranto. After several days of cannonades and relentless assaults, the city succumbed to the Ottomans on the 11th of August. In the aftermath, hundreds of citizens were executed, including a group later revered as the Martyrs of Otranto, while others were enslaved, held for ransom, or escaped into the countryside. With the city secured, the invaders set about mending the fortifications for their future operations. Word of Otranto's capture reached Rome on August 11th, carried by monks who described widespread slaughter and crescents mounted on church walls. Pope Sixtus IV called for a crusade, ordered the city's own walls to be repaired, and pleaded for soldiers from France, Spain, and Hungary. Alarm spread, but the crowns of Europe were sidetracked by their own wars, leaving Italy essentially to fend for itself. Pamphlets soon declared that the conquerors would advance on Rome, execute the Pope, and convert captive Italians by the sword. Merchants fled to Florence. Nobles evacuated their families to hilltop strongholds, and the price of grain doubled within weeks. The psychological blow, far more than the military threat, persuaded many Europeans that the Ottomans could not be stopped. In Otranto, Gedik Ahmed Pasha repaired the walls, dug fresh wells, and awaited reinforcements to carry the jihad up the Adriatic coast. Mehmed II had instructed him to seize Brindisi and Taranto next, and then ferry over 16,000 Sipahi cavalry to link up with a second fleet from Greece. Every sign suggested the Sultan planned to winter in Italy and resume his campaign in the spring. But on the 3rd of May, 1481, while riding out for another inspection, Mehmed II collapsed outside of Gebze and died, quite possibly poisoned by his physician. The message arrived 6 weeks later, halting troop movements, silencing couriers, and casting doubt on promises of fresh gunpowder. Without a crowned sultan, Ahmed Pasha ceased all offensive actions, rationed his supplies, and turned Otranto from a launching point into a simple garrison. Back in Istanbul, the throne itself was contested. The charismatic prince Sem rushed from Anatolia, while the cautious Bayezid used the Janissaries to secure the palace. Neither side dared to dispatch ships to reinforce Otranto while the imperial seal remained undecided. This fraternal conflict drained the empire at home and left its army stranded abroad, preventing any march on Rome. Had Sem prevailed, most chroniclers believe he would have assembled the fleet, reinforced Otranto, and pushed north to challenge the Pope, just as his father had intended. Instead, Bayezid was victorious, deemed Italy an overextension, and commanded Ahmed Pasha to abandon the beachhead. By September of 1481, Ottoman soldiers were reboarding ships for Albania, and Neapolitan troops re-entered a city that was ruined but free. The Otranto episode reveals how a ruler's death could shift the fate of millions, turning an offensive empire into a cautious one overnight. In the medieval age, a single heartbeat determined whether Rome would face a siege or breathe freely. Nothing illustrates the era's brutal logic better than an abandoned invasion, called off not by armies, but by a funeral.